Today, I'd like to talk about the fragility of musicians, and perhaps just artists in general, and what a rotten lot they have in life. The nasty situation of the artistic type. I did something interesting, and I went to Facebook.com not too long ago. And Facebook.com is awesome because you get to read many posts by different people from all over the world, and you get to experience many different types of thinking and ideas. It's very fun and interesting, and you should try it. On Facebook.com, on Twitter.com, on many different websites, you can read other people's thoughts, and you can be exposed to new, wacky, crazy, harebrained, nonsensical ideas. And I did that recently over on Facebook.com. I saw a post. The post reads like this. I'll read the whole thing now, and then I'll tear it limb from limb throughout the video. Musicians, artists, theater people are among the strongest and bravest people on the face of the earth. In 1 year, they faced daily rejection by people more than what others live in an entire lifetime. Every day, they face the financial challenge of living a freelance lifestyle, the disrespect of people who think they should find a real job, and their own fear of no longer working in the future. Every day, they have to ignore the possibility that the vision they dedicated their lives to is an impossible dream. With every note, opera, or performance, expose themselves emotionally and physically, risking criticism and arbitrary judgments. Every year that passes, many of them look at how their peers achieve the goals of a normal life. The car, the family, the house, the savings. Why? Because artists are willing to give their entire life to one moment, to that tune, to that sentence, to that agreement, or to that interpretation that will touch the soul of the public. Artists are people who tasted the juice of life at that crystalline moment where they let their creative spirit out and touched someone else's heart. At that moment, they were closer to magic, God, and perfection than anyone else could have. And in their hearts, they know that devote to that moment is worth more than 1,000 whole lives. And this is attributed to David Ackert. David Ackert. I looked up this Ackert character. I don't really know who he is. He's like a lawyer or a motivational speaker, but if this guy said this when I was in high school at a motivational type speech, I think I would change careers to being a carpenter or a house painter, or someone who exposes themselves in public, something more sensible than being a musician. So this bathroom stall quality scribbling, to me, is the product of a very unhelpful attitude. And if any of you watching have ever felt this way, that artist-type people, musicians, theater people, whatever, have this horrible, downtrodden, stepped upon by society lot in life, that you should get rid of this attitude as soon as you can. You should shed this mindset like you would shed clothing if it was on fire. You get it off because it's only going to hurt you. That's what I want to get to. So, musicians, artists, theater people are among the strongest and bravest people on the face of the earth. For one, Earth isn't capitalized. We're not talking about a little pile of dirt here. We're talking about the GD planet. Strongest and bravest people on the face of the earth. I don't even know how you could even begin to prove this. I don't even really know what it means. Strongest and bravest? If my house is on fire and I see a fire truck full of trained firefighters, and I see a Ford F-150 with a stoner band from Athens, Georgia, I know which one I'm going to ask for help. In 1 year, they face daily rejection by people more than what others live in an entire life. So again, this is a nonsensical statement that it's true just because someone says it's true. So to me, it has no importance or no bearing on pretty much anything. And all it does is just further this woe is me, I'm the poor artist idea. It's no good. I don't buy it. Every day they face the financial challenge of living a freelance lifestyle, the disrespect of people who think they should find a real job, and their own fear of no longer working in the future. They face the financial challenge of living a freelance lifestyle. In my experience, I don't think anybody who lives the freelance lifestyle Nobody gets into this line of work not knowing that this is the case. I don't think anybody gets this far to actually being a freelancer and then they're surprised that money is probably tough to come by. Anybody who has lived long enough to see what the real world is like and what it's like to have to make money and have to pay your own bills, it should not be news to people that it's hard to make money in the freelance lifestyle. So I don't get this point either, because we all know what we got into. When we signed the deal with the devil to play accordion music for a living, okay? You know what you're getting into. But also the freelancer lifestyle, I would say, brings very many advantages. And this little Tumblr post doesn't mention any of those. It doesn't mention the fact that you have a lot of control or complete control over where you work, who you choose or do not choose to work with, control over your schedule. You're probably your own boss if you're a freelancer. Well, you are your own boss. That's the definition of a freelancer. They don't mention that here, that there are many perks and benefits to being your own boss, to being a freelancer. You have to make the choice about what you want to do. Many folks do it one way, many folks do it the other way, and you have to find out the way you want to do it. If you want to live the freelancer life, the fun, freewheeling, artistically liberated way of working, then you also have to take the negatives. That's just the reality of things. Every day they face the financial challenge of living a freelance lifestyle, the disrespect of people who think they should find a real job. This to me is just crying out as just projecting someone's own self-doubt or insecurities. If you're a dedicated freelancer, dedicated musician, artist, whoever, if you're dedicated into doing that, then as far as you're concerned, it is a real job. No one can tell you, find a real job, because you say, I am working my real job. This is my real job. I'm a piano player. I'm an accordion player. I'm a painter. I'm a sculptor. It shouldn't matter what somebody else says, because you already know what's going on, if that is exactly what you're doing. So this real job nonsense makes no sense to me either, because if you're in it, then you know it's a real job. And if you're questioning it, well, then maybe you're not exactly in it, or maybe you don't want to live this lifestyle, live the freelancer lifestyle. Maybe it's not for you. If you're still concerned and if you still have this doubt. But if you're gung-ho and you're dedicated into it and you know the risks, you know the challenges, you know how much it's going to suck, how it's going to be bad, then you say, this is my real job. It's a real job that's structured differently, certainly, from the maybe more common white-collar or blue-collar jobs, but it's a job nonetheless. If you get paid money to do stuff, if you keep the lights on, you keep the bills paid, that's your job. If it's a job that's different from most people's, then hey, you have a cool story to tell folks. You meet new people. Hey, what's your job? Oh boy, I paint Statue of Liberty's toenails. Someone's got to do it, and that someone's me. Pretty cool. So this real job thing makes no sense to me. It just cries out that this is somebody who is feeling very sorry for themselves and wants everybody else to feel sorry for them too. Woe is me, I'm the artist, nobody likes me, I'm rejected every day, and you all got to feel sorry for me right now. You have to feel sorry for me, and you have to feel bad for criticizing me. This is an unhelpful attitude. You should not be telling people how to feel about your work. You should not be telling people that they have to approve of you, they have to respect you, that they have to think positively of your work. This is no good. You can't force someone to like what you do. Just in the same way you can't force someone to like you. Every day they face their own fear of no longer working in the future. I don't know how this fear of no longer working in the future, I don't know how this fear is exclusive to artists or to musicians or to artsy-fartsy type people. What, do blue-collar and white-collar workers, do they not have fears of job security? Well, who knows what could happen? Maybe your company could go out of business. Maybe your economy could have a downturn and then you're let go out of a job. Maybe technology improves and maybe your job just goes out of existence. So this job security thing, I don't buy it either. I think there's a line from The Sopranos where Tony says,
So, break it down for him. What two businesses have traditionally been recession-proof since time immemorial?
Certain aspects of show business and our thing.
Now that's it. That's all I gotta say.
every day they have to ignore the possibility that the vision they dedicated their lives to is an impossible dream. To dream the impossible dream, to fight. This impossible dream thing, in this one line, I would like to take a different approach than I've taken to this toilet scribble so far. So far, this little deal is saying how awful musicians have it, how they have this horrible situation in life. But for this particular line, I want to make it actually be worse than what they wrote here. This person wrote, they have to ignore the possibility that the vision they dedicated their lives to is an impossible dream. I want to change, ignore the possibility to ignore the probability. The probability that the vision they dedicated their lives to is an impossible dream. This goes back again to the realities of the freelancer lifestyle, of what everybody who's in this line of work should know. That this vision, if your vision is in fact some kind of big highfalutin, ultra success, lots of money, lots of notoriety, if that is your vision, then it's not just possibly gonna not pan out, it's probably not gonna happen. It's more than likely not going to happen. You're more than likely not going to be the next Adele Dazeem, Elton John. And maybe if you haven't explicitly said this to yourself, then you probably know it. You know it's not going to happen. But again, for dedicated freelancers, to dedicated pros, this does not faze you or waver your resolution. This is part of the gig. This is what we signed up for. It's the way the world works. If every musician got to be big and famous, then, well, none of them would be big and famous. That's not the point. Because that should not be the vision. The vision should not be mega fame or whatever it is. If that's what you're chasing, then you're going to be more than likely very disappointed and a real sorry fella. I'll get to what I think the dream should be, what the vision should be. At the end of this video, I'll get to what I suggest you replace this nasty, destructive attitude with. Something more positive and more helpful and more useful to the artist. With every note, opera, or performance, expose themselves emotionally and physically, risking criticism and arbitrary judgments. With every note, opera, or performance. I've never performed in an opera. But as far as I know, an opera is a performance, and it's usually consisting of many notes. So, note, opera, performance. I think they all can kind of mean the same thing. And to me, this is just more evidence that David Ackert may in fact be an angsty 10-year-old kid on livejournal.org. But, that's not proven. That's just a hypothesis. Doesn't matter, though. Exposing themselves emotionally and physically. I like this physically bit. I want to know what kind of exposure is going on here where you're being exposed physically. Like, you're going out there to play for some people who sing in your opera, and what, are folks going to throw rocks at you? Hey, your high A flat's a little bit low. Here, I'm going to throw a firecracker at your gizzard. That's some pretty hardcore performing. I kind of like the sound of that. I'm kind of intrigued by that. I want to get some, get some visceral action. For pro wrestlers, I could probably get it. Pro wrestlers certainly expose themselves physically. They get hurt all the dang time performing their art. Last time I got hurt playing accordion, I don't know. I might have hit my toe on something. My shoulders were a little bit sore the next day, perhaps. I needed a self-massage. But I guess I'm lucky that I don't expose myself that physically, and I guess my audience is lucky for that as well. Risking criticism and arbitrary judgments. To me, I think this is the crux of this horrendous testimony. Risking criticism and arbitrary judgments. This writer equates criticism to being a risk. Criticism is something you risk. Like when you drive a car, you risk being in an auto accident. If you are running on a wet floor, you risk slipping and falling and hurting yourself. And when you perform, then you risk criticism. This is an abhorrent attitude. If you view criticism like a risk, like an operational hazard, like you're falling off a railing, and that's a risk of somebody criticizing you, you need to abandon that attitude, that mindset, like a sinking ship. Because this is only going to fester and just make you a real nasty and rotten artist. It's going to make you feel like crap. Worse and worse and worse as time goes on. Criticism is not a risk. Criticism is a reality. And moreover, more importantly than that, in the twisted and horrible world of this writer, all criticism is bad. All judgments, arbitrary judgments, I don't know what other kind of judgments there are. Aren't they all arbitrary? All judgments and criticism are all bad. You suck. You're bad. Your life choices are bad. Your music is bad. Your art is bad. Your opera performance note is all no good and substandard. And you should feel bad about it. In this person's nasty, pessimistic world, it's all bad. And it's a risk. A risk you want to avoid, like you avoid getting into a car crash, like you avoid slipping and falling down the stairs. In my world, in my reality, in the world that I walk around and participate in, this is not the case. Criticism and judgment can just as often be positive and uplifting and laudatory than it can be negative and demeaning and rotten. And it's all, and everything's in between too. You can also be so lucky to receive so-called constructive criticism, which to me is a horrific phrase. When I see someone talk about constructive criticism, I want to vomit in my seat. I want to take my shoes and stick them in my ears, because no doubt if somebody is concerned only about constructive criticism, then their definition of constructive criticism is going to be moving like a flag in the wind. But that's neither here nor queer. I see it here on YouTube, this whole risking criticism idea. I see it in regards to the YouTube comments. You may have heard this too. Oh my God, the YouTube comments, so bad. The awful, horrible, nasty, rude YouTube comments. Stay away from it. You stay away from the YouTube comments like you stay away from a patch of rose bushes, like you stay away from poison ivy. The YouTube comments, so nasty. Don't even try to read them. This attitude is equating negative criticism with some kind of crime. It's like saying if someone doesn't like my accordion cover of a Ja Rule song, if they respond negatively to it, that they are somehow inflicting me, as if they were beating me with a stick, like they were running me over with their car. Your time is not that good, Jackson. It's a little bit too long, a little too rambly. Oh my God, they didn't like my Ja Rule cover. Oh my God, I risked criticism. The disrespect that I'm receiving. This, like, what is this with the melodrama? What is it with this soap opera attitude that random strangers, or even not random strangers, even people you know, someone not liking what you do is somehow like as if like a sword being pierced through you. Oh my God, I've been injured because you didn't like my Nelly accordion cover. This makes no sense to me. This is, again, part of the reality. When you put stuff out there into the world, whether it's art or something else, this is not just for artists. Many people have these issues of being rejected, of being responded to in a negative manner. Why is this exclusive to artists, to people who make artsy-fartsy things that have a vision? Why is it exclusive to them? It's not. Everyone faces rejection all the time in many different ways. How do you choose to deal with the rejection? How do you choose to deal with negativity? Sooner or later, you'll get it. If you put things out there in the public, sooner or later, you'll get it. Even not in public, even in private. You'll get negative stuff sooner or later. How will you choose to deal with it? This is not a good way to deal with it. To deal with negative criticism as if it's some kind of bar being pierced through you, as if, oh God, what a horrible attack that's been laid upon me. Someone didn't like what I did. Someone disapproved of what I produced. This is not a helpful attitude. Every time you value something over or under something else, you're making a judgment. you're making a criticism. When you wear one shirt over the other, you're making an arbitrary judgment. These bad, horrible, nasty, you risk arbitrary judgments. If you watch a movie and you say, good movie, bad movie, you made a criticism. You made an arbitrary judgment. I like this food over this food. I choose to eat this rather than this. I wore this headband instead of that headband. I made a judgment, and you do too 1 trillion times every day. So there's no point in trying to hide yourself and shield yourself from the horror, from the garish miasma of critique, of criticism. In fact, you should welcome it. You should embrace and welcome and encourage criticism and arbitrary judgment. What do you think of this thing I did? I did this Ja Rule accordion cover. What do you think of it? Did it suck? Tell me it sucked. Was it good? Tell me it was good. You should welcome that, in my opinion. I think the consummate artist, professional, should be only too welcoming of critique, of criticism. Because artists, we can get so wrapped up into our heads, into the vision, into whatever artistic ideal we have in our head, that it's very, very, very easy to become blind to other people, to become blind to the rest of the world, to the rest of society. So I think it's very helpful and useful to get the perspective of other people so we can see how other folks might see our work, our art. And I think if you shut those other voices away, if you reject them and try to and protect yourself from some imaginary paper tiger, you're doing yourself a disservice. It's not helpful to shut off other people like that. Each year that passes, many of them look at how their peers achieve the goals of a normal life. The car, the family, the house, the savings. Why? Why? Because we're people. Because we're human beings and we naturally compare ourselves to others. That's just what happens. If your DNA is the same shape as mine, the same corkscrew pasta shape as mine, then you compare yourselves to others in one way or another. It's unavoidable. There's no use in trying to avoid it or shut yourself off from what you probably are naturally doing. What is different is how you deal with that. How do you value those comparisons? How do you value the judgment of your work compared to somebody else's? If I compared my musical output to the Beatles, if I compared my career to the Beatles, I would dig a hole in my backyard and jump right in it. Oh, the Beatles, they were very, very young, and they got very big and super popular, and they made millions of dollars, and they sold a bajillion records, and oh my God, and what am I doing? I'm here on YouTube. This is a horrible attitude. This is totally worthless. This is a bunk psychology. Now, obviously, that's an extreme example. These big mega music stars, and then me here in my underpants in the pantry. It's not a good comparison. But there probably are some good comparisons, but it all depends, because everybody's different, everybody's career's different, everybody's output is different. So there might be some comparisons in your life that may be useful to make. Somebody perhaps who's around your same age, with your same background, does the same thing you do, plays the same instrument that you do, does a similar genre that you do, is in a similar area as you are, has the same fan base that you do. There might be some useful comparisons to be made there. But you have to be very careful to the value you place on comparing yourself to other people. And again, how is this unique to artists? How is this unique to artsy-fartsy people looking at, oh my God, the white-collar job, I went to high school with this person and now they bought, their fourth car, and then I'm here living out of my Fiat 600. There are probably a billion reasons why that person's buying their fourth car and you're living out of your Fiat 600. Reasons you probably don't know. So I would recommend being very careful and very cautious to how much weight you place on comparing yourself to other people, especially if you don't know them that well, or if all you do is go on Facebook.net and look at pictures of Mary Jane Rottencrotch's new jewelry collection. She's signaling ships out in the bay, and then you might feel bad about yourself because all you've got is some plastic cubic zirconium Claire's item. It's not useful. Lose the comparisons. And again, I don't like this. How their peers achieve the goals of a normal life. What's a normal life? Hello, what's a normal life? Hello, angsty 10-year-old Zanga writer of this horrible piece of garbage writing. What's a normal life? Owning a car? What type of car? What if you live in New York City? Many successful folks in New York City, they don't own any cars at all because they don't have to use them. How big of a car? Sedan, a midsize, a Chevy, a pickup truck, a tractor trailer? What kind of house? You need to buy a house? How is renting fine? I bet many successful folks are renters. How big do the houses have to be? 500 square foot? 1,500 square foot? Be a big old mansion? How much money do you have to make a year? 5 grand? 50 grand? 500 grand? What's a normal life? Tell me, I'll give you $1. You can add that to your normal life bank account. Makes no sense to me. This is nonsense. What's a normal life? This is somebody projecting their insecurities out there, and they have this painted picture of what a normal life is supposed to be and how, oh my God, I don't have this. I don't have this car. I don't have this house, and I'm worthless me. And look at the society has dug me into this pit, into this horrible zone of despair because I want to play Ja Rule covers on my accordion. Because artists are willing to give their entire life to one moment, to that tune, to that sentence, to that agreement, or to that interpretation that will touch the soul of the public. I can only assume that this person is using the phrase entire life in kind of a metaphorical phrase, and not that poor Jackson Parodi is in his pantry playing Jay-Z covers on his accordion, and he'll literally die if someone puts one dislike on that video. I know, I'm being a little bit cartoonish, but this is more melodrama. This is more painting this soap opera picture of the poor, downtrodden musician, shunned by society. Nobody likes what I do. Nobody respects me. I have to get a real job, yada, yada, yada. All this woe is me, this plaintive, awful, sad tale. I don't buy it. When I see something written like this in such a horrifically unsubtle way, I think somebody's trying to sell me something. Someone trying to sell me on an idea of every musician being this, or every artist, I shouldn't project my own musician insecurities, that every artist or artistic person is this poor 8th class citizen in the world that everybody just steps on and offends and doesn't respect their thing, and they are demeaned at every corner. I don't buy this. And then the final paragraph is, this is basically like breadcrumbs in the meatballs. This is all filler. This is just flashy, ooh la la flavor to make this MySpace diatribe appear to be something halfway reasonable. And it just makes no sense to me. Artists are people who tasted the juice of life at that crystalline moment where they let their creative spirit out and touch someone else's heart. At that moment, they were closer to magic, God, and perfection than anyone else could have. If this was a Wikipedia article, I would put a citation needed here, please. Closer to magic, God, and perfection. That sounds like the name of some kind of like mid-90s R&B album. You know, check out the new Boyz II Men record. It's called Magic, God, and Perfection. You know, they're on some kind of pose there on the cover. What does that mean? This is some kind of artistic thing that artsy people, they can transcend our reality. You know, you lowly people who work in the office, you lowly blue-collar workers who unload trucks every day for a living, you cannot taste the marrow, you cannot suck out the juice of life and with your lowly existence. Only I, Jackson, who plays Jay-Z covers on my accordion every day in the pantry in my underpants, only I can achieve this transcendent level of being. It's nonsense. And in their hearts, they know that devote to that moment is worth more than 1,000 whole lives. And it has to end on this very troubling and disturbing message that devotion to that moment, to this vision, to this artistic ideal is worth more than 1,000 whole lives. 1,000 lives. This leads to very troubling conclusions, I have to say. A lot of people can do a lot of things with 1,000 lives. 1,000 folks working, they can get a lot of stuff done. What's the exchange rate between an artist's devotion to their craft and lives? If I do a cover of a Steely Dan song, how many lives is that worth? Maybe like about 600, 700 maybe. If I do the Beatles, maybe that's more like in the 2,000 to 3,000 range. Okay. Steve Miller Band, 5,000. Okay, very nice. How about that Seal song, Kiss from a Rose? That's got to be at least worth 10,000 lives. What are we doing here? Is this like Dark Souls, where everything is worth souls? You know, how many souls would it be worth if I did a play about an accordion player who falls down a mine shaft, breaks his leg, and makes friends with the rats who live in the mine down there? How many souls is that worth? 60,000 souls? 75? With the silver covetous serpent ring. This makes no sense to me. There's no use in me criticizing this because it's just rambling. That's it. Poor David Ackert. I feel like perhaps David Ackert might just be an innocent party in this. Maybe this poor lawyer / motivational speaker had nothing to do with this quote, and maybe this has just been pinned to his name in some kind of smear job. And if so, I really do apologize. Forgot to mention almost this horrible image that accompanied this post, and it's this urban skyline, this urban cityscape at night, and there are a bunch of buildings, and all the windows are dark except for one. There's one lit window, and it says artist. That's where the artist is. While all the normies are asleep, the artist is up late at night doing God knows what. You know, they're working on their scales, they're building a ship in a bottle. Who cares what it is? The artist. While everybody else is asleep, living their normal sheep lifestyle, the artist is up, sacrificing themselves, sacrificing their sleep to weave baskets in a fish tank. I would add another lit window next to the artist one, and it would say, single mom, just gave birth to her third kid, and she can't go to sleep because the baby will wake up every 2 hours crying. And she can't go to sleep. So her light is on. I'll add another lit window in another building, and it's a couple that are fighting because they wait to put their kids to bed before they fight about money because they're having trouble with their marriage and the husband got laid off at work, and so they have to argue about what bills are going to get paid first this month. Get where I'm going with this? You're understanding this? So this whole thing about the artist is alone in the struggle. Everybody else is living their normal lifestyle and getting a nice good night's sleep, while the artist alone is bearing the burden of dedicating their lives to this vision. If you have this attitude of everybody's out to get me, of the YouTube commenters are out to get me, and critics are out to get me, and people who write articles are out to get me and disrespect me and what I do, this is an awful attitude to have. And more importantly, it's useless to you. It does not help you at all. It does not help the artist do what the artist is supposed to do. So to round things off, rather than me be Mr. Critical and Mr. Arbitrary Judgment and be Mr. Demeaning of this just abhorrent little drawing, what would I suggest? If you do have those thoughts, what would I suggest you replace that with? I would suggest this, which is what I would suggest to anybody else, artist or not, musician, theater person, or whatever or not. What I would say is to focus on the work. Whatever your work is, if you're a musician, if you're a playwright, if you're an actor, if you're a singer, if you're a carpenter, if you're a financial consultant, if you're a janitor, it's focus on the work. Whoever you are, you have stuff that you do well, or that you want to do well, and focus on that. And rather than worrying about everybody else, rather than worrying about the critics and the people who disrespect you, and the people who yada, 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 and they don't like this and they don't approve of this. Rather than focusing on that, spend your energy in here, in bettering yourself, improving your craft, being better at what you do, and improving on your work, your music, your plays, your TPA reports, whatever it happens to be. Focus on that. Trust me, there are enough hours in the day to focus on the work that you won't have time to worry about or whine or moan about the critics. That means listen to other people and then digest it in a way that doesn't bog you down and weigh you down and occupy your mind with any kind of nonsense. Spending the nights awake worrying about what other people think of you and whether they approve of you or not. Focus on the work. Attitudes like this, I can't stand seeing. Here on YouTube, in real life, anywhere. It's just an unhelpful, annoying, meaningless mentality to have. And if you have this at all, then you're better off without it, in my opinion. So, thanks for watching.